Hey, is it recording? Awesome. Alright. Hey guys, it's Josh. I haven't been here in a while. I mean, I've been here behind the scenes stuff, but I mean, you guys probably haven't seen me or heard from me in a long time, video-wise. Anyways, I'm here to review Ant-Man. Now, this is my third time recording this review because every time I record it, either I've gone too long or I can't remember what I said in the review versus what I said in the previous recording. So I'm doing this one just to make sure I definitely get it right. Now, I sadly did not see it with CJ. I was on a date. CJ, forgive me. But, yeah, I know CJ has seen it, and he really liked it. Give it an 8 out of 10. Now, me personally, I agree. I'd give it an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5, actually. Just because it does change a few things up in the Marvel Universe. I'm not talking about, like, oh, it's bigger, better kind of thing. But I just mean the style of the film. I mean, the film was definitely a heist film at heart, and then Marvel on top of that. So I guess you could say the cake is heist, but the icing is Marvel, which complements it more so than it probably negatively affects it, in my opinion. Now, the way I'm going to do this review is I'm going to give you a general idea of what the plot style is. I'm not going to go into the plot. I'm not one of those reviewers who tells you the whole story. That's stupid. That's not reviewing, that's recapping. So I'm going to give you a good idea of what the plot style is versus other movies in that genre, and where I think it's good at and where I think it's bad at. Also, I'm going to talk about the main character, the antagonist, and the supporting characters a little bit, but definitely the protagonist, antagonist more so than the supporting cast. And then also I'm going to talk about, basically just from there, the good, bad, kind of, in my opinion, but I just want to give you guys a good idea of how I'm going to do this review. Hopefully it won't be too long, but, you never know. So let's get into the plot style. So a lot of superhero movies, they go intro to protagonist, who becomes superhero. So intro to superhero, then foundation of superhero getting his powers, / superhero gets his powers, enter antagonist, supervillain, because the supervillain is usually someone tied to the protagonist in some sort of way that it causes them to react to the villain in the form of being a hero. Either that or they just become the hero on their own when they get the powers, and then villain comes reactive to that. Anyways, when the villain's introduced, usually the villain is introduced as a superior figure, either they're stronger, faster, whatever have you, and then that causes drama for the the superhero overcomes that obstacle, defeats villain, becomes hero, and the movie. Usually that's kind of how it goes, basically. In recent years with the Marvel films and how they've done their thing with them all being interconnected, the ending of the film has usually become a backdoor pilot of sorts. Amazing Spider-Man 2 took it way too far with that whole backdoor pilot concept for sequels and stuff like that. But, a lot of the films have become that, mostly by using the credit scenes. So the film on itself can definitely tell its own story, but then the credits can kind of, open up that extra door to what's to come. So that's kind of how it's been. And I gotta say, Ant-Man, it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. And it's very nice, it's very, it's one of those movies, it doesn't feel too long, which a lot of movies have a problem doing. They feel very long or drawn out. This one, the pacing is very well done. You are engaged in the movie the whole time. And you never feel, man, this could end right now. You don't feel that. It has a very kind of Spider-Man 1 kind of vibe to it, if that makes sense. I mean, yeah, Spider-Man 1's a very good, actually, comparison. Just how this movie is done. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the Edgar Wright stuff, the pay-to-read stuff, whatever have you. I mean, definitely, I'm happy both contributed to this movie because whatever contribution they gave to it, this movie was good. And I do think they gave Edgar Wright executive producer credit. But I mean, yeah, this movie was good. A lot was riding on this movie. Marvel's reputation, people were like, oh, can they pull off another obscure kind of movie? A lot of people were also saying with the whole Edgar Wright dilemma, will Marvel be able to prove everybody wrong? And then just the name in general, the common person is not going to be excited to see a movie called Ant-Man. I mean, it's not the coolest name in the book, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. And it's not the most, sellable character, you could say. I mean, yeah, you can sell a shit ton of ant toys. But, I mean, beyond that, how are you going to, a lot of people don't like ants. It's not like Spider-Man, where it's, ingrained in your mind is awesome. And then you see spiders, and a lot of people are like, ah! So, yeah, but, yeah, definitely this movie, the way they did it, it was a heist movie at heart, Marvel on top. And I just complimented it. because it definitely felt like a very different type of film, which is awesome. It did not feel like the regular superhero movie, which is why I brought up Spider-Man 1. Because Spider-Man 1 very much felt the same way. I mean, usually the movies are very formulaic, but Spider-Man 1, it just, the way it did it very well. So this movie I would put on the same level as Spider-Man 1, if anyone saw Spider-Man 1. Now, let's get into the characters a little bit. Like I said before, I wasn't going to recap the whole story. Let's get into the characters. Scott Lang, probably the most relatable superhero we have gotten in recent films, definitely recent films. I mean, everyone's like, Batman's very relatable, Iron Man's very relatable, Captain America's very relatable. This dude, Ant-Man, Scott Lang, he just wants to be a good father. I mean, he's not rich. He's more on the poor side, really. He just wants to have a job so he can get money, so he can pay child support, so he can see his daughter. And the crime he did, it wasn't even bad. It was very much kind of in the vein of Robin Hood. It was a Robin Hood-esque crime. I mean, the company he worked for, stealing money from their clients, he exposed that, gave the money back. Obviously, there's a lot of legal stuff that he did wrong in the process to do that. But, I mean, he wasn't a crook. I mean, a few times in this movie, they're like, oh, he's a criminal record, things like that. But then when you look at it, what he actually did, you're just like, it's not like he tried killing somebody or anything like that. I mean, the dude was just giving the money back to the people that was getting stolen. He was Robin Hood, basically. So definitely, that was really nice to see. I mean, the guy's just an honest guy. He just wants to do the right thing. And once his daughter comes into play too, he just wants to, as they say in the trailer, earn that look in his daughter's eyes. Which honestly, it just like, I was very much so like, I don't know a father that wouldn't be the same way. Most fathers would do anything for their kids. I'm not talking about like deadbeat dads or anything like that. I'm talking about the general, most fathers. They would do anything for their kid. So, I mean, definitely on that scale, you can relate to it. Now, moving on past that, I mean, I think Paul Rudd did a great job as Scott Lang. Hank Pym, I'm going to briefly talk about, because a lot of people were kind of worried when Michael Douglas was casted, because they were like, oh, he won't be the star of the film. But he definitely was a highlight of the movie at the same time. Like, Michael Douglas did not kind of, he didn't choke the role, so to speak. This wasn't just something he was doing for a paycheck. He actually did a good performance. I mean, there are certain parts of the film that called for emotion. There are certain parts of the film that called for him to act, and he did a good job. I think he actually was very excited for this movie just because of the different type of movie it is. And it kind of is a different type of superhero film. I think that was what intrigued him about it or something like that. But anyways, getting past that, the character of Hank Pym, they do show a younger Hank Pym in the film briefly though. And you definitely see that kind of anger side to him where, he's a bit of a hothead. You could piss him off very easily, you push the right buttons. So that was interesting because obviously comic book Hank Pym is known for his temper. And now the whole wife abuse thing was never mentioned in the film, which I was happy about, because in the comics, Hank Pym was not a wife abuser. He hit Janet once. Not saying it's the right thing, but to be an abuser is to abuse something. He did not abuse his wife, he hit his wife once. And it was an accident. Actually, the guy was insane. He was clinically out of his mind when he did it. So it wasn't really even him in a calm state of mind, it was him batshit crazy doing it, which Reed Richards has done multiple times, things like that. I'm not going to go into it too much, but basically I'm happy they didn't focus on that with Hank Pym. He's a genius, yada, 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 and they focus on the right things, basically. Briefly talking about Janet, aka Wasp. They do call her the Wasp, actually. And I liked what they did with her. Now, they do hint at the microverse a bit, which was pretty cool. That's an interesting concept I did not expect them to go into. They also do hint at Giant Man, or, just being able to grow, not just shrink, which was really cool, too. I hope we see that in the next Ant-Man appearance, which will supposedly be Captain America Civil War. So I hope they do show that in Civil War, him becoming tall, or big, whatever have you, Goliath, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Hank Pym was just very well done. I thought it was really well. Now that brings us to Darren Cross, aka Yellow Jacket. Now in the comics, Darren Cross is not Yellow Jacket. Yellow Jacket is the insane, kind of personality that Hank Pym develops. And that's basically what Darren Cross is. I mean, to compare you, to give you a good idea of what the character is, if Ultron was the very negative kind of the negative aspects of Tony Stark amplified to Tony Stark, then Darren Cross is the negative aspects of Hank Pym kind of expanded upon to Hank Pym. Now, like, they have the whole mentor-mentee kind of thing going on, and like, the dude is obviously mentally ill. He's crazy. I mean, I don't know the right type of diagnosis for his, kind of illness, but they make a point to show you. It's not something where it's just like day and night. Like, Obadiah Stane was very day and night. He was just kind of a very corrupt businessman in that sense. But this guy is definitely, he's very, morals are in the wrong place, and he's kind of crazy. And a lot of that's driven by, Hank Pym, his obsession of getting Hank Pym's approval. It's very much, if you saw The Flash TV show, Pied Piper, it's kind of like that. He's Pied Piper, basically, kind of taken up a notch. He just wants his mentor's approval, all that stuff, and he goes to very far lengths to try getting it, basically. And if you know anything about mental illness, also there's a break point where the person just snaps. And you definitely see that in this film. Man, oh man, oh man, do you see this in this film? The dude's menacing. I mean, a lot of people complain about the Marvel villains. This dude is terrifying. I mean, probably one of the biggest threats as a villain Marvel movies have had. And that's why I compare it to Spider-Man 1, because this dude is like Green Goblin kind of threat. Like, the dude, like, he'll murk you any second, and you have no control, especially because the dude can shrink. I mean, like, the Yellow Jacket suit is badass. Really, it's basically weaponized Ant-Man, but you can't control insects, which I thought was really cool. I thought that was a very nice thing, because you can only make him so OP before it's ridiculous. So at least letting Ant-Man keep the ability to influence insects, I thought that was good. They did not give that to Yellow Jacket. Now, but what I was getting at here when I was talking about Yellow Jacket is, just like I mentioned before, Yellow Jacket was Hank Pym when he was batshit crazy in the comics. At least when he first became Yellow Jacket. And Yellow Jacket in this movie is pretty much what batshit Hank Pym would be like. I mean, they even make a point in the film to be like, Darren Cross is basically Hank Pym. I mean, but just like off the deep end kind of Hank Pym. So in a way, they kind of gave us crazy Hank Pym Yellow Jacket. They just renamed him Darren Cross. Because Darren Cross is nothing like that in the comics, obviously. He's a villain, but I mean, he's not Yellow Jacket by any means. He turns into this like weird purple kind of hulkish figure. But yeah, so that's Darren Cross for you. And I just thought that was an interesting thing to point out. I liked how they did that. Excuse me. Hope Van Dyne, I don't think I talked about Hope yet. She was interesting. She was definitely like the strong female character, because I know that's a very, a thing that's being pressed upon nowadays with having supporting, casted females. She was really good. I thought Evangeline Lilly did a great job. Looking forward to seeing her in a more expanded role if they make a sequel. Fingers crossed they make a sequel to Ant-Man. However, speaking on the whole sequel thing, one of my concerns with the Marvel movies is that they're going to give a solo film to the character, and then they're just going to show them in the Avengers, or in this case, Captain America: Civil War, aka Avengers 2.5, for future appearances. Because, I mean, I would love an Ant-Man 2, but it seems like they're just going to kind of put him in Avengers stuff, and that's going to be it. Because they never revealed an Ant-Man 2 slot in their Marvel upfront, and I'm sure they can try cramming in there, but most likely they're not going to cram it in there, because they're already kind of cramming in Spider-Man, and that kind of pushback stuff. So, I mean, we won't get an Ant-Man 2 for, at the earliest, like 2020. And last time I checked, it's 2015. That's like a 5-year difference. So, I mean, that's my concern with, like, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, those kind of movies. I'm like, are they just going to make a solo film and then just Avengers? That's going to be it, just Avengers appearances? But, I mean, beyond that, the film was good. I mean, it was engaging, didn't feel too long, if I already mentioned that, I'm not sure. Now, the rest of the supporting cast, like the Heist, team members, I thought they were good. There's one guy who's obviously comedic relief, which isn't a bad thing. He's comedic relief done right. A lot of times it can be really annoying, but this guy is just, he's made for you to laugh at him, and that's a good thing. Because usually the Marvel films, the protagonist is like, the smart ass, or, I mean, you always have a smart ass character, and Tony Stark being definitely one of them. But this guy, he's just made to be funny. Basically, that's it. His character's name is Luis, and I think he does a great job. Granted, I'm curious, all right, so they say what he did, right, to get into jail. I I'm not editing this, but excuse me really quick. I gotta turn off my alarm system. Alright, I think Scott Lang was trying to break into my house. But, yeah, so, I mean, this guy, he, like, stole, like, 2 blunders or something. That's what they say he's in jail for. Yet, he's Scott Lang's cellmate. And, I mean, considering what Scott Lang did, I'm just like, how are they in the same prison? But that's something I hope they, explain in, like, a one-shot or, you know, a comic book thing. But, yeah, this movie was really good. Now, some pros, cons I want to throw out there. Pro, this movie was a heist movie at heart, which was good. Another pro, just all across the board, the acting was good. I mean, it'd be really easy to screw up a movie like this, and Marvel did a really good job. And I gotta give them props for that. All across the board, production, cast, whatever have you, good job. I mean, congratulations on making another good Marvel movie, I guess, but also congratulations on doing, out of all movies, Ant-Man well. Because that's gonna go a long way for the Marvel brand. Just like Guardians of the Galaxy went a long way for the Marvel brand. And this was very much like Guardians of the Galaxy in a sense, where it felt like it wasn't a Marvel movie, but it was. I mean, it's in its own ecosystem, in the biome that is a Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which is the best part about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that you can do stuff like that. I mean, you got different types of movies, different types of feels for the movies, but they're all still connected, which was really cool. Granted, you can kind of see maybe where Edgar Wright was kind of like at, because supposedly the whole thing was, you know, they were wanting to make it more connected. So, you know, you can kind of see like there's certain parts that are kind of like, like really, maybe not, maybe, but you know, all in all, it's pretty good. The final scene's kind of funny for the wrong reasons. It's not funny because Thomas the Choo Choo Train hits Yellow Jacket like in the trailer. It's funny because of everything else that happens in there. But yet again, Yellow Jacket, menacing as hell. The dude's terrifying, honestly. He's terrifying. And they make a point to explain maybe why the villain's crazy. You know, the Pym particles, they say, you know, messes with your biochemistry to a degree after enough uses or enough exposure. I guess unsafe exposure, I should say. And it messes with your brain, the chemical balance in your brain. So, I mean, there's a scene in this movie. I'm not even spoiling the plot or anything, but he's in a kind of like a light, and he gets electrocuted, and it's just in that moment, it's kind of like you just feel like electroshock torture is kind of what's going on there, in that kind of scope, and then the next scene, the dude's gone. I mean, this is like Norman Osborn to Joker, not Norman Osborn Joker, Norman Osborn to Green Goblin kind of shit here, like of how terrifying he gets. So yeah, holy shit. Dude was in regards to Marvel movies, villains, I know like Marvel gets a lot of crap for their villains. This was done very well. This guy, Yellow Jacket, was done very well. I mean, yeah, like I said before, I like how they basically made him a dark mirror of Hank Pym, which is what he basically was in the comics. He was crazy-ass Hank Pym. So, I hope you guys like it, if you guys go see it. That's it. I'm not trying to make this review too long. I really wanted to make a 10-minute review, but I knew very quickly that wasn't gonna happen, so I do apologize if I was too long. But there is a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene, so please stay after, in case you didn't know that. And yeah, ask me any questions in the comments, or tweet us at HybridNetwork_, I believe that's our Twitter handle. It's in the description though if you want to tweet us. But you tweet us, we'll tweet you guys back with any spoilers. I want to keep spoilers to a minimum in the comments. So, you know, please don't spoil if you don't have to. And, yeah, the movie was solid. Another solid installment. And the next movie is Captain America Civil War, I believe. So, yeah, let's go.